If you're already a Grimpy Acre subscriber, I'm going to venture to guess that you're already taking an active role in the process that puts food on your table. Now, if you're new to the channel or you're not a subscriber and you haven't already started taking control of that process, I'm going to probably guess that you've seen warning signs and you're starting to look at how to do that, and that's the reason why you're here. Well, you know, from time to time, I think it's a good idea that we get reminders as to why exactly we're doing what we're doing. And the other day, I found something that, in my mind, is a perfect representation as to why we do what we do. So, if you're interested, stick around, and I'll show you what I found. Okay. We didn't start this channel to black pill people. Our message is meant to encourage and educate people. Sometimes, though, we run across topics that will challenge people's worldviews. And unfortunately, this is one of those topics. So, the other day I found the digital copy of When Civility Fails. And it's a book about what happens during a societal collapse and how to deal with it. And in the section about the food supply system, they had a graphic that was a side-by-side representation of the past system and the present system. And in my mind, it shows exactly why we're doing what we do. Now, I broke this graphic up into two parts. I've got the past system, which is basically prior to the 20th century, and the present system, which we're living in now. So, let's take a look at the first graphic. So this graphic shows what our food supply system was like for most people in the U.S. prior to the 20th century. If you live outside the U.S., chances are it's the same for your country. As you can see, it's a pretty simple system. Food travels from the local farmer to the local processor or market, or it comes from your garden to your table. This system was in place for many people all the way up until about 1942. After World War II and the advent of Big Agri, advances in industrial farming led to some pretty dramatic changes in the way people got food. Now, let's take a look at the second graphic. As you can see, the system we're in now is a much more complex system. It has many more moving parts. While food moves from mega farms to preliminary processors, packaging, chemicals, and preservatives move from manufacturers to various processing and packaging plants. The food then moves from those preliminary processors to those processing and packaging plants where they're packaged and made ready for sale. From there, they move to storage hubs from which they'll be distributed. By this time, your food may have traveled hundreds, if not thousands of miles to get there. From these hubs, the food moves to the just-in-time system that supplies grocery stores and then to the family table. All right, let's look at the graphics side by side. In both graphics, each one of the arrows is a point of failure. By that I mean, should something go wrong at that point, the chain is broken. Over the last couple of years, we've seen real-world examples of this, as the supply chain suffered shutdowns due to COVID restrictions and manpower and material shortages. By its simple nature, the older system is much more robust because there are fewer moving parts. Also, in the older system, because everything was done basically on a local basis, people could find solutions much more quicker and much more easily if something were to go wrong. Now, those arrows also represent something else, points of control. And by that I mean, if you control those points, you control the process. Now, here comes the black pill. Throughout history, food has been used to control people's behavior. By controlling food and the people's ability to get it, dictators and governments are very easily able to control the population. Now, if you're my age, You probably remember the commercials with Sally Struthers standing in front of a starving child begging for donations. The famines in Ethiopia and Sudan in the 70s and 80s weren't caused by drought. They were mitigated by it, but they were caused because the governments were seizing donations of food and withholding them from the population to control them. In the 90s, when I was in the Marine Corps, I spent time in the Somalia Theater of Operations due to the unfolding humanitarian crisis, and that crisis wasn't caused by lack of food. It was caused because the warlords were seizing that food and using it to control the population. Probably the most egregious example of that is the Holodomor in the Ukraine. In 1932 and 1933, Stalinist Russia starved to death about 3.9 million Ukrainians in an effort to collectivize the Soviet Union. Of recent, great concerns have been raised about efforts to push globalism on an unwilling population. The whole goal of this push is control. It's manifesting itself in government encroachment on individual rights and increased corporatism controlled by a handful of millionaires and billionaires. Christian over at Ice Age Farmer recently did a video where he laid out a pretty good case, in my opinion, about the concerted effort to corporatize protein production in the United States. Now, small farmers and ranchers are being driven out of business by various means, and private citizens' ability to raise their own food is being curtailed through government edict and supply issues. I'll put the link up here for it so you can go check it out yourself. Like I said, we're not here to black pill people. Our goal, or our goals, are to educate you, to encourage you, and to give you facts so you can make up your own mind. Now, if you think this video fulfilled those three goals, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button for us, would you please? If you'd like to know when we're dropping more videos like this, go ahead and ring that notification bell so that YouTube hopefully will notify you when we drop videos. And most importantly, this is what we want you to do. We want you to go out and start taking active control of the process that puts food on your table, because when you do that, you start down the path of pursuing a life done free just like we are. Take care.
Thanks, Milo.